a good vach. As we go into a new week, coming from the week of the giving of the Torah, Parshas Yisrei, and we think about the giving of the Torah, it creates in your mind, imagination, what it looked like with all the thousands of Jews together, hearing God's voice, what it was about. And on that note, I want to share with you an amazing encounter that the previous Rebbe shared that he had as a child. And I'm going to paraphrase from the original writing the previous Rebbe. He says, when I was 11 years old, there was a celebration. Please put the lights back on. There was a celebration of the engagement of my aunt and uncle. The Rebbe Marash's daughter married a Rabbi Hornstein, and so the previous Rebbe's daughter also married a Menachem Mendel Hornstein. So the previous Rebbe wrote a letter to his son-in-law about the engagement of his parents, who were also related to the previous Rebbe's aunt and uncle. So the previous Rebbe said like this. He said that when the celebration of their engagement, there was a lot of people. There was a great farbrengen, and my father, the Rebbe Cashapp, was speaking about the power of imagination, the power also not just imagination of tziyur. Tziyur is not relegated specifically to imagination. Tziyur could also be the power to convey something in a picture or in words. As we get into it, we'll see the meaning of the word tziyur. Tziyur literally means a picture, but the Rebbe Rasha was talking about this power of imagination, the power of conveying, of being an artist and conveying something through words, through thoughts, through drawing. And so the previous Rebbe said I was 11 years old and I couldn't understand everything. I just heard a few words of a discussion between my uncle, Rabbi Zalman Aron, and another chassidus, his name was Rabbi Mordechai Slonim, and they're discussing two words, the words chush and the word kishrein. Chush and kishrein could be translated perhaps as a talent. Both of them could be translated as talent, but there's a subtle difference between them. And they were discussing this subtle difference. And they were discussing whether the power of imagination, power of picturing something, is it a chush or a kishrein? Is it how exactly can you classify what this power of imagination is? If it is a chush, it's not a kishrein. If it's a kishrein, it's not a chush. If it's another way of translating chush is a sense, a soul power, and kishrein is more of a talent, something you're born with versus something I'm not really representing, I'm misrepresenting rather the discussion by translating it. So maybe I better not translate it. But either way, they're discussing how to classify what this talent is. And the Rebbe Cashapp answered, he heard the discussion, he said they're both correct, that a chush and a kishrein are two different words to expressing talents which are totally different from each other. But the power of imagination has both elements to it. And he said that if you're talking about conveying something in words, then the correct way of classifying it would be the word chush. If you're talking about conveying it in a picture, power of imagination, as when you through an artist creating a picture, then the correct word would be kishrein. So everyone was listening and they're very, very attentive to this. And the Rebbe Rashab's brother, Rabbi Zalman Aron, was a brilliant, brilliant person. And the previous Rebbe said that he generally did not get very excited about anything. He was very calm, collected, and very brilliant. But he was so excited to hear the Rebbe Rashab's description, something which was very remarkable and unusual. So the previous Rebbe said, I didn't understand everything. I was a child, but my teacher, Rabbi Skabla, and others, they did explain this to me. So I did remember the stories that the Rebbe Rashab shared at the time. The Rebbe Rashab recounted how he had an audience with his father. He said, when I visited my father, I asked him something, and he explained it to me. And in this explanation, he started talking to me about the neshama, the soul descending to this world. And when he started talking about the words of the Alter Rebbe describing how the soul descends to this world, he shared a parable of a king who sends his son to a very faraway place, to a wild forest-like region, and the task that the king gives his son in this wild region to teach wisdom to the people who live there. People are very wild and crazy and foolish people, and the son of the king, the prince, is given this task. And he described in great detail, and he as he was describing it, the Rebbe Rashab said, I was able to feel what he was saying in such a vivid way. He spoke about how the king's son is previously in the palace, and how he is around very wise people. And now he has to leave all these wise people and to go to a very far-off area with wild people, not normal people. And he has to act in a way, and he has to be in a situation which literally endangers his life. And he describes how the king has pain, and the king is frightened about his son perhaps not fulfilling his mission, and how the king makes an effort from a distance, through various means, to cause different things to happen so that his son should be successful in his mission. So the Rebbe Rashab described with his words how as time goes on, the king's son gets used to the customs of the foolish people there, and he forgets about the chamber of the king. He forgets about the customs of those who lived with the king. He forgets about the wise men and the officers of the king. And he also starts to enjoy and celebrate the foolish things that the people in this far-off country are doing. But yet, said the Rebbe to the Rebbe Rashab in this private audience, he said, but all of a sudden, without knowing how it happened, but out of nowhere, all of a sudden, the prince has a image of his father that just shines to him suddenly. And when he sees his father in the palace, and he remembers his mission, he goes back to his job, and he makes a strong resolve in his mind that he won't connect anymore to these foolish people and to celebrate the foolish things that they're celebrating, and he will focus instead on the task he was given until he fulfills the mission he was given fully. The Rebbe Rashab said that it took a long time for his father to give him describe to him this whole parable, and he said, my soul left me hearing him describe this, because as he's saying this, I could feel the king and his son hugging each other when they left, their pain, the pain of the prince, how he's among all these wild people. I felt it, this whole experience. Till today, said the previous Rebbe, I can still picture this farbrengen where the Rebbe Rashab shared that audience he had with his father. I could picture the table as the way it was set up. The table was set up north to south, and at the head of the table was this chair of the Rebbe Marash who had passed away, the empty chair, and on the right of the chair of the Rebbe Marash was where my father, the Rebbe Rashab, sat, and he was facing to east, meaning towards the chair. And my uncle, the Rebbe the Razah, was sitting on the left of the chair, facing the west, facing the chair as well. And I, said the previous Rebbe, I was sitting next to my father. While they were reading the customary document announcing the engagement, the one who read the document was Rabbi Moshe Levin, a very close friend of the Rebbe Rashab. And after he finished reading it, he put the document on the table in front of the chair, the Marash, and the Rebbe Rashab and his brother, the Rebbe Zalman Aaron, were looking at the chair, the Marash, with their eyes full of tears. The previous Rebbe said, I will never forget that moment. I'll never forget that picture. How my father shared that audience he had with his father. Before he started to speak, before the previous Rebbe said, before my father started to speak, he stood up, and with both of his hands, he held on to the end of the table, and he looked for a long while at the chair at the head of the table. His face was white, and there was only 2 red splotches on his cheeks. Tears were streaming down his eyes, and that's when he began to speak and said, I once visited my father. And all those who were listening also stood up, except for my uncle, Rabbi Zalman Aaron, who sat, and his eyes also were like 2 streams of tears. When the Rebbe Rashab finished saying this encounter he had with his father, he took a cup of mashke, a cup of vodka, and he said, in the name of the one whose celebration this is, and with his, and empowered by him, at his behest, I say l'chaim to the bride, and I give over his holy blessing, that this engagement should be a true bond, and the wedding should be an auspicious hour for the long and good years. L'chaim to my friends, l'chaim to the mechutanim, and he announced, now it's time to dance, and then he danced. His brother danced with him. He was, because of his health, he only couldn't go around the circle a few times, but all the other, those attending this celebration, and the Rebbe Rashab danced for a long time. At that farbrengen, the Rebbe Rashab spoke a lot about the idea of the idea of a tzir, the idea of imagination. And the Rebbe Rashab said that there are 3 different ways of conveying imagination. And these 3 ways are in your thoughts, in your words, and in your actions, in your deeds. The previous Rebbe said I couldn't understand a lot what he said. I understood things later. My father shared it with him at different occasions. But in short, there's a different kind of energy in the imagination and thought. When you are imagining something in your thoughts, so you are animated by your imagination. When you are conveying something in your words, something you imagine, a picture in your mind, you're conveying in your words, the one who's listening is animated by the words you're saying. And then there is an animation that is done in an action. I think he's referring to a picture. And when an animation is done in action, then the thing itself becomes alive. So when it's in thoughts, you're alive. When it's in words, when you're listening, who's listening is alive. He's animated by the way you're conveying to that person. When there's actual picture, the thing itself is alive. The Rebbe Rashab continued and spoke about his trip to a museum and different pictures that he saw in the museum, and a specific artist named Raphael, and a few different works of art that he saw from Raphael. He describes 3 different paintings of Raphael. The first painting was a war. There were 2 groups of soldiers fighting against each other, and the generals were standing on high places looking with their binoculars and seeing the soldiers wrestling with each other. When you looked at the picture, it made you very frightened, because on one side of the picture you see blood. You see people who have this. You could see in their faces this feeling of anger and attacking and like literally like animals. You see on the other side, you see people missing limbs, missing hands, broken hands, legs cut off. You see blood coming out of people. You see their fellow soldiers, their brothers, carrying them in beds. Three wounded soldiers carried in one bed. You see how they're carried, but the ones who are carrying them are also suddenly shot and fall into a deep pit. Then you see someone running and someone riding on a horse. And as he's riding on the horse, he gets shot together with the horse and he falls. Then you see another person going on a horse. In his right hand, he has a sword. In his left hand, he's holding the reins. His mouth is open. It seems like he wants to announce something. And there are other people running behind him. And you see, and you see that there's a meeting going to happen between the two opposing forces. They're about to clash with each other. And then there's an explosion. So this picture was scrutinized by hundreds and thousands of artists who know all about war, and they all agreed that this picture is true to life. That means it's something which is actually the way it really is in war. The Rebbe Cashapp said that people say that there was one expert artist who thought deeply about this picture and he fainted. And the doctor examined him, said the reason why he fainted was because this picture was so lifelike that he got actually frightened by looking at the picture. He was living in the war. The second picture was a picture of a field. One part of the field is wheat, another part of the field is barley, and it's in the springtime, and the sky is clear, and the sun is shining, and on the sides of the field there's this road, and there is a wind that is blowing the stalks is blowing the barley, and it looks like a wave. And on the wheat field, you don't see the wind affecting it at all, only on the barley field. And on top of one stalk of wheat, there's a small bird. And then at the end of the field, there is a tree with a lot of branches. And on one of the branches, there is a black raven. And under the tree, there's something that some ants have gathered, some leaves together. And about 3 steps away from the tree, there's a little lizard which is enjoying the warmth of the sun. So this picture was examined also by hundreds and thousands of artists, and all of them praised this picture. All said this picture is amazing, and it makes a really great impression. And while you're looking at this painting, it seems like you are standing in the field. And the Rebbe Cashapp described the field that they used to go to harvest the wheat to bake the matzahs. And he says one day to this museum, a farmer comes. He looks at the picture for a moment. He scratches his hair. He scratches his hair and he says, "This isn't really true. This picture doesn't fit the truth." So when the people working in the museum heard this farmer criticize the picture made by Raphael, which cost exorbitant amounts of money, they scornfully responded and said, you're a farmer, you don't have any wisdom, you don't understand anything, you don't know this was made by Raphael. So this farmer couldn't pronounce the word Raphael, so he said chachal. Chachal no chet patret, ne pravda. Says this chachel, he couldn't pronounce his name. He says chachel, his way of pronouncing Raphael. Chachel he's made a picture which isn't true, not exactly true. So while this farmer is criticizing the picture, one of the top top employees at this museum is walking together with a group of brilliant artists who have come to see the paintings. And when this worker saw he saw that this and was laughing at this. When the senior employee saw that everyone's standing around this farmer and they're laughing at the farmer, so he's wondering what's going on. They told him that this farmer is criticizing Raphael's painting, and so how he scratched his head and he said that he's not making his painting isn't correct. So now this group of artists who are touring the library, touring the museum, they're also laughing. This silly farmer thinks he knows what's going on, and while this is all going on, while everyone's scorning him and laughing at him, a group of people who are visiting the library, visiting the museum, come in, and they start talking to the farmer. And the farmer is holding his hand onto his chest, and he's like hitting his chest, like, I'm telling you the truth. And the people listening to him are shaking their heads. Yeah, he's right. He's saying the truth. So one of the artists who sees this exchange, he says, I think that the farmer may have a lot to say, more than us artists have to say. This guy's a farmer. He probably knows his stuff. His rejection of this painting is probably more significant than the praise of the other artists. He wants to hear, what's the guy saying? What is his issue with it? So he approached the farmer, and the farmer's repeating, and he's saying like this. The picture of the wheat field, the barley field, with the wind flowing on the barley stalks, like waves of the ocean, that's the way it is in nature. That's the way it really is. When the wind blows, that's how it looks. And the tree with the branches, it's all good. It's all correct. The raven sitting on the branches is correct. That's the way it is in life. And the lizard warming itself in the sun is all correct. However, the small bird who's standing on this stalk of wheat is not correct. Because while the bird is standing on this stalk, although the bird is small, and although its body is very light, nevertheless, the weight of its body should have made the stalk bend a little bit. But in the picture, the stalk is not bending at all. So when all of the officers in the art library and the museum and all the employees and all those who had visited, the artists came and heard what he said, they all looked at each other shocked. And they were standing there shocked, thinking, how could this be that this guy has something to say that really shows he knows something about that the great Raphael doesn't know? There is a third painting in this museum. The third painting is of a Roman court, and there are people who are in the courtroom which are shackled, and you could see the witnesses, the prosecuting attorney, the defending attorney, and the people who are standing in the court listening to the judgment. And the relatives of those who are being judged are fainting, listening to the prosecuting attorney. And because he is demanding that those who are being accused should get the full weight of the measure of law. And a little child who is a son of one of the accused asked permission from the judge that he should be able to say a few words on behalf of his father, who is being judged to be killed. The child stands on a chair and he stretches out his hands, and with his right hand, he shows, he points to all those who are gathered, and with his eyes, he is like looking to the judges, and as if he's saying to the judges, you should know, judges, that every word that comes out of your mouth, you will have to defend yourselves in heaven. And you also have to reckon with your heart, all those who are gathered in this courtroom. And you have to take into consideration with your heart all those who are here, all those who think that my father is being accused incorrectly, and he is not guilty. And meanwhile, his father is sitting with his head between his legs. The defending lawyer, the lawyer on behalf of his father, is standing there with his mouth opened, and you see some joy in his mouth, and you see tears coming out of his eyes. The prosecuting attorney has a very angry face. His eyes are closed, is fully listening, and the judges are sitting there with their mouths open and their eyes are full of tears. And in the entire courtroom, despite the fact that there's so much going on, there's total silence until you could hear a fly. So the Rebbe Cashapp said, when I was standing next to this picture, I couldn't move for a long time. I went and I brought a chair and I sat there until the museum closed. I went back 3 times to look at this picture again. It made a huge impression on me. And he said, I took a lot from this, from seeing these pictures in my service of Hashem, because I heard from my father, in the name of the Baal Shem Tov, that whatever you see or hear is a message and teaches you something how to serve Hashem. And then he said, the previous Rebbe said, there's 3 things we learned from these 3 pictures. From the first picture, the picture of the war, we can take a lesson about the war against the evil inclination. The second picture, the picture of the field, teaches us a lesson. Something may be very correct. It's as if it's alive. But if it's not, if there's no bending, I think that means if you're not actually willing to be flexible to what's being asked of you, it's not true. So although it may seem very real, but if you're not going to be flexible to what is being asked of you, it's not true. That's what we get from the second picture. It may look very real, but if there's no bending, you're not ready to give in a little bit, not true. And the lesson from the third picture, the picture of the courtroom, is as follows. When a person is being judged in heaven, by doing one favor to one Jew, this favor can create an angel in heaven to defend that person. And imagine the great pleasure you have in creating a defending angel in heaven by doing one favor to one person. That's the lesson we have from the third painting. So we have 3 lessons. The first one is a lesson we learned from the fight against the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination. It's a war being fought, and how serious it is not to get caught by the evil inclination. The second picture teaches us how if be flexible to the truth. If it's real, it should cause some movement. It's not causing you to bend, not causing you to give a little bit. You're not getting the truth. The truth requires you to move with it. If you're not it doesn't affect you at all, it's not the truth. And the third painting tells us how we're able to create a benefactor for ourselves in heaven by doing one favor to one person. And that's what I wanted to share tonight about the power of imagination. And more important than imagination is a lesson we're supposed to learn. As Moshe said, wherever you see or hear as a message in our service of Hashem. And so as we are standing about to greet Mashiach in the last moments of the exile, we don't only need to do is one good thought, one good word, one good action to tip the scale and bring Mashiach to the whole world. And we see this happen tonight. A good avach and a freilich avach. Avach Yehuda, avach Raphael, avach Rabbi, avach David.
Good work. Amen. Good work.
Thank you.